I know we're live. I'm going to just check to see if John Gale is going to join. Hmm. Let's see if I can call him. If anybody else, if any Alex or John shows up, just let me know. Will do. Um, just checking to see if I can have a quorum. Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to try to give a couple of the council person a minute or so to join. So we will have a quorum. Okay, so we may have a small dilemma because Councilman Gale is on another meeting. And my question for Director Hayes, could you give me a call on my cell phone?
Yes, no problem.
Thank you. Okay, so I think I got it solved. Thank everyone for being patient with me. And so, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the virtual committee meetings for the Public Works, Parks, Recreation, Environmental Committee. Today is Wednesday, the 24th, and it's 6 p.m. committee meeting. Our committee members are Councilman Kelly Bilodeau, who's the chair, but she's on vacation this month. I am Shirley Surgeon, Council President, and I'm kind of pitch hitting for her, also a committee member. Councilman Gale will be joining us in a few minutes. He asked us to get started, and Councilman Alex Thomas is also a committee member. So we are going to get started until Councilman Gale joins us. We have two items on the agenda. The first item is a presentation by Donna Swore pertaining to the revitalization of the carriage house and Gardener's Cottage at Cole Park. And we have Donna joining us. Good evening, Donna. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks
Good.
so much. I'm glad you have another item on the agenda, and I'm glad that Councilman Gale is going to be able to join you so that you can act on it.
Yes,
That's a
ma'am.
relief.
Thank you. So,
So
um,
I can go right to the presentation. I see, oh gosh, I thought I saw, uh,
Naisha McCauley is here with you.
yes, Naisha
Um,
is here. Yes.
And who else did you want to be here
That-
with you?
that's it. It's just me.
Okay.
Naisha is coming as chair of
Okay.
PRE.
So do you have a presentation you want to put up on the screen?
I do. So
All
could you
right.
share?
Yes, you can definitely go ahead and load up your presentation. There you
Okay.
go. All right, perfect. Good job.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes it works. Okay, so it's always what to do with this, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
but we
geez.
make it work.
There we go. So,
All right, there you
um,
go.
what I wanted to do was share information about a meeting that the Colts Park Foundation held in May. And it was about those two pieces of property, historic properties, that are included in the Coltsville Historical, park that is being formed. Colt Park is included within the boundaries of the national park, but it is the statue and these two buildings that are of interest within the park. So, as such, I think it was 2 years ago now, um, Congressman Larson, the National Park Service, Colt Park Foundation got together and talked about what monies could help the historical park get up and running. And these two buildings came up in conversation. So $1 million was found to keep this, I'd say, project going, because in the past, small amounts of money had been used to shore up the building so they literally did not fall down. People did go in and there was an environmental study, but that was like 4 or 5, maybe 6 years ago. So the funding was found about $1 million. And what I have learned over time is that you've always got to keep one step ahead. So the $1 million is to quote unquote restore the cottages and the cottage and the house, carriage house. And by that, it means to make it so that the structure is stable. It doesn't have anything to do with, I'll say, a finished product.
Donna, let me just cut in one quick second. Just want to acknowledge that Councilman Gale and Councilman Thomas, who are both voting members, has joined us. So we do have a quorum.
Oh, good news.
Thank you for letting me say that. Go ahead now.
Okay, so I just wanted to share with you the people that attended. So we had 23 people who did come. And there were, I would say, several people from the community, residents that live around the park. But we also had, I call them stakeholders. Um, so when you see on here Syscon, 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 those are neighborhood people. And we also had Hartford Next attend. I just want to make sure that you do see that there are residents who were involved. The Wildcats Football League president came. And so I just always like to point that out. There's another organization called the Coltsville Heritage Partnership, and you'll see this listed. And it's an organization that was formed almost 10 years ago, but it hasn't really gelled just yet. And they have a board, but I had waited a while for them to act upon these two buildings, and I really didn't see any movement. So the Colt Park Foundation, although our mission is more geared towards residents' use and advocacy for the park, Colt Park, this still needed to get done. And so we took this on. Now, this part of the presentation was created by I guess her title is manager, but she's in the architect department and she is under Julia Jack. So she put together these slides. And I'm hoping that you're able to actually see some of the detail going forward. But just in case you're wondering, where are these buildings? Because so many people don't know. They're kind of hidden because of their placement, but also a lot of large trees kind of obscure, I'll say, visibility to these two buildings. So if you go down Stonington Street, to the left would be Weathersfield Avenue. Okay, so if you're to go down Stonington, right where Groton Street bisects it is pretty much directly across from the cottage, the gardener's cottage. And then further inside the blue circle is the carriage house. The structure that's to the right is part of the DPW maintenance area, and those are offices. And down below are the garages and the storage area for all of the equipment that DPW uses in the South End parks. So this is where it all happens. And there's also a gas station. So you can see by just looking overhead that the areas between these two buildings and DPW is, I'll use the phrase, a little scruffy. But the two buildings, that is where they're located. Down below at the very bottom of the slide, the drive that you see, the pavement, is the entrance to Colt Park off of Weathersfield, and it takes a very sharp right if you're familiar with that street. So here is, a couple of images of the carriage house. The structure, the upper one where it says east and north elevations, the building to the left is the original structure that the Colts built. The building to the right was built during that time when the Civil Corps in the 1930s built a lot of municipal buildings. So, and then the two down at the bottom, you have different views of the original building. And here are a couple more, but it kind of gives you an idea of it looks pretty scruffy. This is the inside, and I know that when you're looking at a screen, sometimes you really can't see too much. So I hope that you'll take some time to, I'll say, look at them and blow them up a little bit. But what you're going to notice is there's a whole lot of work, the restoration, as I say, the stabilization that is needed. And the $1 million, we're, hoping that it gets the job done. Next comes the gardener's cottage. And again, there's many sides, but what's really prominent in the lower right-hand corner is a very large porch. And it's in the upper right-hand corner as well. But this porch is going to be going under a lot of scrutiny because we're not sure yet if this was original to the house. And another picture of, I'll say, the outside. You can see that the foundation is a little bit crumbling underneath. There's, well, to be perfectly honest, it looks worse right now. This is the inside. The DPW staff was keen to point out that the plumbing was intact and functioned, and they were really heartened by that news. And I just thought, okay, I don't know what to say, but it looks pretty bad to me. They said a lot of cleaning in both structures. There's a lot of debris, a lot of things that were left behind that need to be cleaned out, as well as the restoration part. Here's another picture. Yes, old radiators. And now we do have the schematics, which is pretty exciting. That makes it a lot easier instead of guessing what was there. There's some really nice details. And DPW really went through, they have drawers and drawers of really cool drawings. And if you ever wonder, what's in there, just go down there and start poking around. It's very interesting. Here is the cottage schematics. Again, it's great to have such detailed renderings. So when we got to the talk, the part about, okay, so what are we talking about here? What am I asking? There are quite a few people who attended the meeting who are historians. And there are quite a few people who understand, I'll say, about renovations, historic buildings. So we had a healthy discussion about the definition of the time of the buildings, the exterior, because that's what needs to remain as intact as possible. But you can decide between when it was built and up until when the addition on the back of the carriage house was built. So it's going to be part of determining what needs to get done on the exterior. The porch, as I said, we don't know on the gardener's cottage if it was there, and we could make a decision about whether we want to keep it or not. Many people thought it would be good because the structure itself is really quite small inside. It would make a nice display area. So they're going to, let me just say, it just means that we're going to be having a lot of conversation, a lot of bandwidth about what it is that you want to do with these two structures. And there was this, I knew about this, but in the, gosh, which one was it? The carriage house. Cadwell Colt was the only son of Sam and Elizabeth, and he was very much like his father. He was kind of a wild dude, but his mother kind of turned a blind eye, and he had cockfighting in this structure. And Mark Twain actually attended some of these entertaining evenings. And so there is an area that everyone agreed should be kept to help share, I call it, the stories about how the structure was used, not only for carriages. So when we brainstormed, and these really are brainstorming ideas for the gardener's cottage, you can kind of clump them into a couple of categories. One, it's for, I'll say, a museum displays, park information, historical information, markers, etc. Some people said that wouldn't it be great to have the upper floor still be a residence for an artist, a ranger, maybe a police officer, maybe park staff. But it's always good to have somebody with, I call it eyes in the park at night. It's one of our biggest challenges. And then there's also the element of the gardener's cottage as in what was the original function? Well, there was a resident gardener. There were many, many of these greenhouses in the park at the time, and they thought it would be really great to do something along the lines of growing, vegetables and fruit and whatnot and flowers. So they saw that it was a nice idea to possibly create, I call it a greenhouse structure to combine or over it or grow, some things within the greenhouse, and also maybe a partnership with Knox. The carriage house ideas, it's a much bigger structure. So again, there was a little bit of crossover between the two, but I'm sorry, the last one I forgot, offices for a variety of nonprofits in the area, such as the Cold Park Foundation, the Coltsville Heritage Project. But in this building, a lot of people talked about bringing the community in, having, I'll say, sports and recreation activities, community meetings. One person actually thought of having a tea house or cafe. The cockfighting ring could be like a presentation area. Anyway, it's just a lot of this, like an extension for summer camps. If it rains out, what do you do with the kids if you had a summer camp in Colt Park? This would provide an activity area. So we had a lot of great input. A lot of people had some super ideas, a lot of coalescing of some ideas, but of course, there will be plenty of time to be discussing other new ideas. So I don't want someone to think that they can't come up with, I call it more ideas. So Julia Jack, our city architect, asked people if they, about enlarging the buildings. And we all just were sort of dumbfounded because we all were thinking within the constraints of historic exteriors and how you want to preserve that so that that's one of the requirements. But one idea was to place a greenhouse between the two buildings to connect them and to create more space. So the next steps for all of this would be, and I listed what the next steps were after the meeting, which have already been accomplished, and you're one of them, presenting to City Council's PWPRE. And just to start, I call it the ball rolling. To start the conversation so that when, stop sharing. I think I stopped sharing, sorry. When we finally, and I truly mean that finally, the ball gets rolling for the restoration, that's the time that we've got to start talking with people about the next step, the next amount of money. And that money would include a design plan. So I wanted to give this committee a heads up that I'm going to be coming back to you for support to continue this, I call it struggle. And I think that it's one of the areas of the park that is underutilized. And when you have an area that is not being used, people find creative, illegal uses for these areas. And so it's so important, not only for the historical element of the park, but it's also important for the public safety element of the park. So with that, I want to thank you so much for giving me time. If you have any questions, please ask, or if you want to email me and ask me questions. I really appreciate, this time.
Thank you, Donna. I think you're still sharing your document.
Am I? Oh dear.
Yes, a little bit. And then I'm going to open the floor up to any of the council members.
Oh,
Um,
okay, stop share.
there you
Okay.
go. Any council members with questions? Seeing none, my question, Donna, to you is, Councilman Gale?
I want to thank Donna for the presentation. I think that was remarkable, and my apologies. I missed the beginning of it, and so I'm going to ask probably a dumb question because you probably covered it at the beginning. One footnote, though, as soon as you mentioned Public Works, I noticed Chris Hayes undid his video, and that cracked me up.
Not me.
But and that's when you were talking about the schematics that DPW.
Oh.
Anyway, you mentioned the National Park Service, and to what extent is the National Park Service, would they be involved? Would this be incorporated or potentially incorporated? And I guess that would mean maybe getting some federal money for all of this.
Well, I'll say Cold Park has significantly benefited from this partnership. They were the first ones to bring, I call it, a significant amount of money. And it really was what began the revitalization of Cold Park. They brought 450,000 to the plate, which was matched by the Park Trust funds, and then Hartford Foundation for Public Giving kicked in $1 million. So they have been extremely helpful. And they were the ones who helped with this $1 million for the restoration. So whenever I am thinking about any areas of the park, if they are the historical elements, it's with them that I go and I work with. And I want the city to understand that I am going to be approaching the National Park Service to, I call it, support me in whatever way they feel is best moving forward. So for instance, the Colt Park's Sam Colt statue, when you drive in, they got the grant to refurbish, and that's going to be happening this fall. The fence along Weathersfield Avenue is in just horrific condition. It's like missing teeth. Whole sections of it are missing. And so I'm hoping to work with DPW about there's a grant, and Andrew Long is willing to work with us on that grant from National Park Service. So I'm always looking to them. When it comes to the fields, I'll tell you, I was just extremely grateful. And I know that one of the biggest concerns the public had when the new park was announced, and it was really going to happen, not just a lot of, talk. Their concern was, is this going to remain a neighborhood park? This is supposed to be for Hartford residents. And they came back and said, absolutely. And that's when we started to identify what parts of the park they were primarily interested in. But it doesn't mean that those parts of the park are not still maintained by the city, but they helped tremendously in getting the funding to perform this work.
Fantastic. Thank you again for all your efforts. It's marvelous.
Great. Thank you, Councilman Gale. Thank you, Donna, for a great presentation. I never saw those two buildings. And I have been through, I think I know where Cole Park is. So maybe I got to just pay a little bit more attention better.
Well, like I said, it's behind some trees. It's very
Yeah.
easy to miss.
Next time I'm going to drive through, I'm going to pay attention. But my question for you is, the monies that you received, that $1 million, is that going to be enough to shore up the two buildings right now?
Well, what's going to happen next is yet another, sorry to put it that way, yet another environmental study to make sure. And at that point, I think we'll know. And when I say we, of course, I'm talking about Julia Jack. She's the one who has to figure all this stuff out. And I think that, fingers crossed, but that's another reason to keep the ball rolling. And make sure that we keep in everybody's thoughts. But honestly, Congressman Larson, yes, he does get tremendous support from Senator Blumenthal and Murphy. Yes, he does. But he is the driver. He is the one. And his staff, I'm sorry, his staff are incredible, and they are always working tirelessly. So we are really grateful to them. And I honestly, we won't know until that environmental study.
Okay, great. Well, you should definitely add Senator Murphy to your list of neighbors.
Oh, I do talk to him.
Great. Thank you, Donna. Great presentation. And thank you for keeping us informed, as you go forward, because we just for knowledge base need to know where things are in the park and where the next, where you guys are going in all the parks. So we can keep abreast of all that information as, as a community talk to us. So thank you so very much for that presentation. Okay, we have one last item on the agenda, and that is put the glass. The item 2.2 from Mayor Arula Lampam, and accompanying resolution authorizing the city to grant to Eversource the necessary easement on city property to facilitate the construction and installation of new 115 kV KLPE underground transmission lines. And that's all foreign language for me, but Director Hayes, the floor is open for you to educate us on the 115 kV XLPE lines.
Good evening, and through you, Madam Chair, I'm going to briefly go over what Eversource and the city have discussed regarding this project, to give a brief overview, and then if there are no objections, I will pass it off to Eversource, who can answer more specific questions, and they also have the presentation that they provided ahead of this meeting.
Yes.
So basically speaking, this project is to replace underground transmission lines that feed electricity for the city of Hartford. These lines that are currently underground were installed back in the early 1970s, and they are fluid filled, basically an oil filled transmission line. This sort of line is coming out of production. The last companies who make these lines are stopping the production of them. And so Eversource and other utility companies have been made aware that they need to be replaced because there will not be parts and service to take care of them. They will be replaced with modernized transmission lines that are more environmentally friendly, and they're a newer and more reliable cable. I should note at this time that Eversource has been very communicative with DPW and the city, and they've been making the rounds at the NRZs and have been working with the mayor's office and community outreach in getting the word out as to what's going on. We expect this work to begin late this summer, and the initial lines being laid will end sometime towards the end of 2026. And then at that point, they will remove the old lines and restore the construction, the areas where they had to do the construction and patching. The other things I think are important to note here is that the project involves trenching, parking restrictions, traffic detours, and Eversource has already begun working with DPW, the fire department, the police department, and the parking authority to coordinate these detours. Public Works and Corporation Council have reviewed and approved all of the easements on city-owned property that we're here to discuss tonight. The restoration efforts we expect will affect roads, sidewalks, trees, and other vegetation, and that will be coordinated through Public Works at the end of construction. And Eversource has met with the mayor's office, constituent engagement, the chief operating officer's office, DPW, fire, police, the parking authority, the Board of Education, and the 4 affected NRZs in preparation of construction. And they will be canvassing door to door to do outreach in the areas that are affected as construction rolls through. They will be working in kind of a leapfrog process where they will tear up one section of road, lay what they need to lay, put up temporary patching, and move along the route. There's a south end transmission line and there's a north end transmission line. They're both being replaced during this project. At this point, I will pass it to Jonathan to add any additional details, and either he or myself are happy to field questions.
Thank you, Director. Jonathan, you are willing to share your screen and do the presentation, and so please feel free to go ahead. And introduce yourself and tell us who you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thanks, President Surgeon and Councilman Gale and Councilman Thomas. We appreciate the opportunity here to present as well. Director Hayes, thank you for that overview. My name is Jonathan Frigno. I'm on the Government Affairs team here at Eversource. I also cover the city of Hartford for community relations. I have a couple other folks with me from the project team. I have Chris Contrene, who is the project manager. Michaela Fritz is with our project services team. Brian Alicia is with real estate. He's going to go over some of the easement details. And then Francesca Lucia is on the community relations team as well. So that's the project team. You can see my screen, right?
Yes, we can.
All right, so we'll kick this off and I'm going to turn it over to Chris to do this presentation.
Thank you for allowing us to present to you tonight and give you a very, pretty high level description of what the project is about. Obviously, we could always delve into details, but it would probably put most people to sleep as you got into the nitty gritty of it, but we're always happy to discuss it. So tonight, we're here to talk about 2 of our transmission lines that run through the city of Hartford. One runs from Southwest Hartford to Northwest Hartford. That's our northern line. And then the other line goes from Southwest Hartford to South Meadow substation, which is over on the east side of the city. So as we talk tonight, we'd like to give you a high-level system overview of our system and where these cables that we're talking about fit in, just to kind of give a little perspective as to how they fall in our system. We'll talk a little bit about our project need and the overview. Obviously, the need is what's driving this. We'll talk about the city of Hartford easements that we've been working with the city on and that we're seeking. We'll talk a little bit about the construction sequence, just for a little background, and also the outreach efforts that our team has made. So, and we'll be continuing. So this slide, I really like it. It puts it into perspective, our system as a whole, in a very simple fashion. So at the kind of the top of the screen, you can see all the various sources of energy that feed into the Eversource system. Our renewables, our wind and solar, nuclear, hydro, and natural gas plants. And all those feed into, from, all over the state and the region, they feed into our transmission system. And you can think of the transmission system kind of as a highway. It's from getting, transporting this electricity from over great distances. And we do that at high voltages so that we do it in the most efficient fashion. Everybody's probably very familiar with, if you're driving along 84, 91, anywhere in the state, you're going to see the very large transmission poles. And then what happens is as you approach your larger cities, having those poles going through the downtown is not practical. So what winds up happening is we have substations and then we put that same voltage, which is 115,000 volts, And we do that underground. And it's underneath the city streets, throughout your large, cities, around Connecticut, around the country, around the world. And those are two of them are the ones that we're going to talk about tonight, the 1704 and the 1722. And essentially we move the electricity across the city to other substations. And then we transform it with our transformers to a lower voltage where it goes out on the streets, either overhead or underground, and ultimately makes it to people's homes, businesses, anybody that is Eversource customer. So that kind of provides a nice high level description of where we are. So as it was mentioned, excuse me, the two lines that we are working to replace were installed in 1974, and they utilize a high pressure fluid filled cable. This was the de facto technology, and until quite, it's still very popular around the country and the world, but it's getting phased out, and it's not the kind of newest and greatest. Part of what is driving this is the last manufacturer of this cable in the country has made it known to the industry that they will be no longer producing the cable. So while Eversource has a spare supply of it, in the event that we had an issue, it's not a very sustainable product to kind of, be the backbone of your system going into the future. And part of the reason you need to be proactive with it is, we started this project about 2.5 years ago. I wasn't on it. I took over about a year ago, but this project's been in development for about 2.5 years. And we're going to go a couple more years until we're actually done. So you can't wait until you have a problem to deal with something like this. You have to handle it in a proactive fashion. As I mentioned, the 1704 line, and when we mention these numbers, these are nomenclatures that we utilize. They're unique identifiers to help us keep them, everybody know clearly what we're talking about. So the 1704 runs from Southwest Hartford to South Meadow, and the 1722 runs from Southwest Hartford to Northwest Hartford. As I mentioned, these cables are being replaced because of their age, and the new existing technology won't be available. The new cable that will be installed is referred to as XLPE. There's a lot of chemical acronyms that go into it, but XLPE is a much simpler way. If you looked at it, it kind of looks like it's it's almost like a plastic, a very high tech, very expensive, but essentially it's a plastic that provides that insulation to keep the electricity on the conductors, so that we can put it underground. And there's no fluid associated with these new products. So, and then essentially we're going to be installing and energizing these new lines prior to de-energizing the existing lines, just to ensure that we have a reliable supply for our customers throughout the city. As you can see in this slide, you can see if you kind of look at the top left, that's our Northwest Hartford substation, and this kind of shows how these two lines navigate south. The first one navigates through the city, down to the bottom left, and that's the 1722, and then the 1704 goes basically west to east across the city, through a lot of different neighborhoods. As it goes along, so I'm just going to kind of briefly talk about the easements. We have Brian Alicia, who's our Eversource real estate expert on the line. So if there's any questions, he can hopefully answer them. This is the first one along Hamilton that we're seeking, and what we're looking to do is in the park over here. Right, kind of just north of Hamilton Street. We're looking for temporary and permanent easement, temporary workspace and a permanent easement for the cables to lie. If you flip to the next one, this is a much more detailed look at what it would look like. It might be a little hard to see on the screen, but in the exhibits that were submitted, It shows what is the temporary and what is the permanent. The much greater space is the temporary. That's where we'll be, having crews working to accomplish the task of installing this cable underneath the south branch of the Park River. And then ultimately we have that permanent easement where the cable will actually lie. The next one is very close to the previous topic we discussed as it goes through Colt Park. And what you can see here, the blue line in the screen is the existing easement that we have with the city of Hartford. And it kind of takes a very sharp cut right through the middle of the park. This was, agreed to back in, I guess, 1974 before at some point. And working with the city and with Donna and a lot of other stakeholders, we worked to kind of route around, essentially around the outside of the park. We're still in the park, but routing around the outside of it to have minimal impact, as we cut through there. If you look at the next one, you can see this is right behind that DPW garage, the first little area. Over there, we'll be installing a vault, also known as a manhole. That's what, you don't see any of it except about two 36-inch steel covers. That's the only thing that would be, visible, behind the DPW building over there. And then the other is kind of off, kind of going past the school as it cuts through that back part. There'll also be another vault installed right before it gets to Hendrickson Avenue over there. And then the third is over by Reserve Road. We have our existing easement and parts, and we're seeking some additional space, the same color code. The blue purple line is the existing, and the red is what the new line, the path the new line will be taking as it cuts through that area. If you go to the next slide, it'll show, not a very large area, but over there. Getting into the timeline, basically what you can see over here, we have, as we move out, the back gets cut. But again, this kind of started back in early 2022 with the underground, the engineering associated with all of this, the community outreach, reaching out to the city, working with the DPW, understanding expectations of the city, from the DPW and all the other stakeholders. We try to be sensitive to as and accommodating to people as we can. You can see the community outreach started kind of middle of last year or so, and as was mentioned, we're looking to start construction later this summer or early in the fall on the physical duct bank installation throughout the city. Giving a little idea, it's kind of referred to as a train. And what this graphic kind of gives it a bit of an idea of what's going to happen. So the first thing we do is install those vaults. As we discussed, those become the anchors of the project. We get those installed. They're quite large. They're about 22 feet long, 7 feet wide, and 7 feet high. And they're buried upwards of 15 feet down below ground. So they're quite extensive. But as I mentioned, the only thing you see is two 36-inch covers on the street level or in a park, etc. So they're very not intrusive, but they do take up a lot of underground real estate. And this is where we join our two, multiple, we can't run a single cable across, single piece of cable across the entire city. So this is where we actually join them, what's called a splice. And that's where we electrically connect them, the various sections of, they're about 2,000 feet long. After that, we begin installing our trench and our duct bank. This is where we physically, dig, being very careful of the other utilities that are under the city streets. In a big city, it is unbelievably congested, and we've had a lot of coordination with the other utilities, a lot of survey work completed to understand. You can see some stuff, there's some telltale signs, but a lot of times you can't see it. So you're going through an unbelievable amount of records, physical location, et cetera, to find a good path as you navigate from point A to point B. Once we get that duct bank installed, we'll temporarily restore it as we go. Obviously, there'll be some plates as we go, but kind of keeping the plates to a minimum. Kind of only a couple days worth of work, and then everything will be temporarily restored. And then once a large section's done, we would go through and repave the area in question. We've been working with the city on that. Once the duct bank is completely installed, gets to the electrical part of the project where we pull the new conductors into these PVC pipes in the duct bank, splice them, and then begin our ultimate restoration of the streets, wrap that up, as well as decommission our old lines that are underneath the ground. As you go, as we work our way through, we'll have quite a few crews. We've been working very closely with the DPW traffic group to understand, we have a professional engineering service that all they deal with is traffic. And giving an idea, traffic counts, obviously there will always be some impact in traffic, right? Unfortunately, it'd be great if we didn't have to, but there would be some impact. But what this traffic study and plan does is it gives us a blueprint for how to minimize that impact, to make it as easy as possible on the residents. This is not a 1 week or a 2 week or a month operation. This is going to be a couple years, not in front of one person's house, right? But there will be construction for, there's always construction in the city, but this project itself will take a couple years. So we're trying to minimize that, impact. And then we'll talk about how the way we do that through our outreach next. So this just kind of gives an example of the different phases of our project and some of the literature we would be giving out to customers, from the initial construction as part of part one, the cable installation, the electrical in the middle, and then that ultimate restoration at the end. So.
Great. Hi,
Yep.
everyone. Thanks, Chris. My name is Michaela, as Jonathan mentioned before. I'm one of the team members on the project services outreach team that's supporting this project. So I'm really excited to get started here. Currently we're working with the abutters along the project route to discuss project information such as the scope, schedule, restoration when that does come around. In addition to the abutting property owners, our team has talked to some key stakeholders such as Colt Park, Trinity College, Hartford Hospital, and a number of other businesses. So as we move into construction, we'll continue to communicate by sending some letters, conducting door-to-door outreach, attending any NRZ meetings, and we'll actually be hosting some pop-up events in the community to keep the community engaged. We actually just did one at the Hartford Yard Goat, so that was a lot of fun for our team. And we got to talk to a lot of good people and get the project out there. So since it will be completed in phases, we will be following up with these stakeholders as well as the time progresses and new construction updates come along. We'll keep the community engaged regarding that. Next slide. The team also created a project website, and it is in Spanish and English, so it can be talked to regarding, it's Spanish speaking. We know a lot of the community is Spanish speaking. I speak a little bit of Spanish, so maybe that's why they put me on the team. But yeah, that's good for community outreach. And that's my contact information.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Chris and Michaela. Yeah, like Michaela said, this is our contact info here. And there's a QR code and info for the hotline and the email that Michaela mentioned. So that wraps it up on our end. So President Surgeon, thank you again for the time, and we're happy to answer any questions for you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Michaela. Any questions from the committee members? Councilman Gill.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And I have several questions, if I may. The the southwest to the northwest run, from that map, it appears to me that that will be traversing Whitney Street and Scarborough Street as it goes north-south. Do I have that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yep. So it goes South Whitney to Scarborough, up to Albany Avenue.
And then what's the terminus once it hits Albany Avenue?
It hooks right. Yep, there we go. It hooks right. It crosses over the bridge on Albany Avenue, and then it goes into a wooded area that belongs to Eversource into our substation. That blue dot up there is our substation.
So this would be sort of across the street from the new development, the old Westbrook Village, which is now, I've forgotten the name of it, but brand new townhouse construction on Mark Twain Drive. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
And so this electricity, while it's traveling from the southwest up to the northwest, are there any substations along the way where this electricity is serving customers along the way, or is it the ultimate distribution come at the terminus in the over there by Mark Twain Drive?
That's a good question. No, it does not. These cables run essentially express from Northwest Hartford to Southwest Hartford. And then from there, we have what's called our distribution system from each of those substations that kind of go out like fingers that feed all the communities in there. You wouldn't bring a transmission cable into a small individual block or neighborhood. It's way more power than would be necessary, and not an efficient way to move the electricity around. So you go good distances on the transmission system, and then you bring it down to the distribution system to bring it out into the neighborhoods.
And so,
did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, yes,
okay,
it does. It does. And so I called it a terminus at the northwest. So I'm assuming that the electricity isn't starting at the northwest and traveling to the southwest. It's starting somewhere in the South Meadows. Is that where everything's coming from? And then it's going to the southwest and also to the northwest?
So to be honest, it all depends on the power flow of the day, what generators are on, where there's demand. The electricity goes where there's demand. So on any given day, it might go from Northwest Hartford to Southwest Hartford. But if other equipment's out of service, it could go the other way. It's not a one-way road. It goes where there's a pull for it, if that makes sense. Northwest Hartford has multiple transmission lines that come in overhead. They follow the rail line over there that go into there. And then, as we move it down, Southwest Hartford has another line that comes in from the west. And South Meadow has this one, and I think about 4 or 5 other lines. I'd have to go look at my engineering prints, but multiple lines that feed in. So you can't really think of these as they feed one direction or another. It's part of a larger transmission network.
Okay, I think I understand. But each of these 3 blue dots here, or blue squares, I guess, is then a distribution center as well.
Correct. Yes.
And sticking with that northwest, can you tell me how much of that electricity is being distributed to West Hartford, how much is being distributed to Bloomfield, and how much is being distributed to Hartford?
Off the top of my head, no, but we can get you that answer. I used to be in substations out on the western side of the state, not in Hartford area, but that is information we have. So if you would like it, we can look that up for you.
would you please? And I would like
Sure.
the same information for the southwest terminus, which seems, pretty close to both West Hartford and probably Newington, and the southeast terminus. I'd like it for all of them if we could.
Sure, that's not a problem. Just I can tell you right off the bat, substations in one town feed other towns, and there's redundancy. The electricity, it's almost like they overlap, so that if you have an issue in any one location, you don't have what we would refer to as stranded load. So there's a lot of redundancies in the system, but I can get that information for you. So
no, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate redundancy. I certainly get it, and I was actually around when what was it, Niagara? We had a massive northeast blackout at some point where I think part of the problem was there wasn't enough redundancy in the system. But anyway,
August 2003, I know where I was. So
okay. And just to follow that for one more second, so I actually live along Whitney Street, right about in the center of your screen there. Is it the case then that the electricity that serves me isn't coming from one of these distribution points?
I could dig in and find exactly what feeder. I don't have that off the top of my head. It's probably one of these two, but I could, it comes from, like I said, a variety of sources. And there's also a lot of ties. So I would say if you live on South Whitney, probably one of these feeds you. But I can't answer that for you right off the bat. So
okay, appreciate. I mean, I can kind of tell from the overhead lines. It seems like stuff comes to me from up Farmington Avenue, but I'm a little north of Farmington Avenue on Whitney, but I don't, maybe these feed Farmington Avenue that eventually feeds me.
Yeah, the distribution does go quite far out. So, but I can find out which substation, which directions each of these substations feed more, with a little more specificity.
Okay, now looking at these actual easements, I was interested that the easement you showed us for Hamilton Street, and I think the one you showed for Stonington as well. Yeah, instead of being a straight line, you're creating a jog, if you will, in the line, which seems non-intuitive. It certainly seems as though the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So why are we not doing a straight line here, and why are we doing these jogs over the river, or under the river, I guess?
So there's nothing we would like more than to go straight. Unfortunately, that wasn't an option. So the existing 1704 line, this is the one that feeds east to west, is actually suspended and secured to the side of the Hamilton Street Bridge. So that space is not available. On the north side of the bridge, there's a big gas main. So that space is not available. And the underside of the bridge, so the bridge itself is not a spring chicken. So obviously at some point, some major construction is going to have to go on it. And in its current state, it wouldn't be conducive for us to undersling the bridge. So that causes us to have to essentially do a little dog leg and go out. And what we'll be doing in the park area to get underneath the south branch of the Park River is a micro tunnel. So what we'll do is the plan is to dig a pit. We're finalizing that, but about 45 feet down from the current surface elevation, a pit. And then there is a tunneling machine that will go underneath and to the other side of the river, where there'll be another shaft that's about 45 feet. And then the cable will be pulled through there. So when I said that nothing we would love more than just to go straight on the bridge, that's why. It's very labor intensive. Ultimately, there'll be no signs that we were there, but it is very labor intensive and time, it takes a long time to do something like that, as you can imagine. involves a lot of engineering and a lot of planning and coordination. So,
Yeah, I can certainly appreciate that.
which was the other one that you were asking about?
Well, is there a jog here as well?
Yep. So in this
I
one,
think it
the
was on
blue line.
Stonington Street, you showed it.
Oh, yes. So the reason for that jog is no more than 5-10 feet. It's not very significant. On Stonington, it is the congestion. There's a lot of utility construction, congestion, including a 72-inch interceptor sewer. So there's not space for us to install the vault in the street. But because of the cable specifications and how far apart the vaults need to be, we had to locate something. So we approached the DPW, and we had a conversation with Donna if it would be, appropriate for us to request this additional easement. It wasn't part of our initial plan, but through our continued surveying and research, we discovered it, and this was suitable, minimal impact to the community, et cetera.
Two more questions, if I may, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So I take it that these, you mentioned this 7-foot wide vault, 7 foot wide, 7 foot high, 20 some odd feet long. I take it the ditch is that being dug for it, therefore has to be wider than 7 feet. So these are going to be fairly substantial ditches going up take one example, Whitney Street, as you're putting in the vaults. Now, as you're putting in the line, is it a similar size ditch? Are we talking about you're going to be going up with an 8 or 9 foot wide ditch all the way up Whitney and Scarborough?
No way. I wouldn't have taken the job if I had to do that. So as we go, the trench, as we refer to it, will be in the 3 to 5 foot width. As we head up all these streets, we actually turn depending on the congestion, we turn the cables, we rotate them. In general, it'd be about 3 to 4 feet wide, the trench that we go up there. But you are right. When we install these vaults, they are quite large. It takes a couple weeks to install it, and they're very deep. We're digging down to about 15 feet. And the size of that vault to get it and secure it below the city streets in a good fashion. So
last question for your last area here. Obviously, this is going to be a lot of construction. There's going to be a lot of, as you've mentioned, as your team has mentioned, there's going to be a lot of interference with businesses, traffic, and I understand that you're trying to take all of these things into consideration. I wish you a lot of success. I know up Whitney Street, we've got a neighborhood elementary school that already creates incredible congestion 180 days a year. So adding to it is going to certainly cause tempers to flare. But when you're all through, all of these trenches and vaults that you've dug and paved areas are going to be repaved. And I'm assuming they're going to be done in just a spectacularly beautiful job. And I hope to the extent that you touch sidewalks, we get a bunch of brand new sidewalks out of the deal. In fact, I'm encouraging you to extend on Whitney Street near the sidewalks and mess them up a bit so that you're required to fix them, because they really need it. So take a note from Farmington Avenue north to Fern. You could do the entire east side sidewalk there, and everybody would love you. But
yes, sir.
My particular question is striping. One of the banes of our existence here in the city of Hartford is that streets get dug up nonstop, but when the new paved area comes over, they don't reinstall the stripes.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know who's, where that responsibility falls here, but I certainly, as a citizen, a resident of Hartford, and I would like to require that, once you're done, that you reinstall any yellow stripes, white stripes, anything that was on the pavement gets reinstalled so that we don't lose a beat. Is that part of the plan at this point in time?
Yes, definitely. So I can't speak to what others do, don't do. You know, you could speculate all night on why it doesn't get done. With a project of this extent, where we're literally going miles, right? It's about 3 miles north to south and 4 miles east to west. The impact will be very large. And part of it is that's in our bid package is restriping the roads. Might there be a bit of a gap in there under the temporary? We'll work through that process, but when we are done, it will be striped. What I'll say is to the current code. I have no, I've been up and down this route hundreds of times. I don't know what's currently in every spot, but we'll make sure that it's striped. There could be an old code. We'll make sure that it's done to the current standard. The asphalt, as long as you like asphalt, it will look beautiful. And as for the sidewalks, where we are impacting the sidewalks, we've been working with the DPW. There are specs for both concrete sidewalks, there are various stages of how old they are, right? We'll be doing it to the current spec. As well as up at that north end, there are some bluestone sidewalks, and the city has a spec for that as well. We heard that from the residents. To be honest, when we met with them, I did not know about the bluestone spec. I was a little concerned that the city might not want them, right? They look beautiful, but I don't, in terms of ADA compliance and, a million other things in 2024, didn't know if that, but there is a spec. So we will be restoring those. If the bluestone can be reused, we'll do that. And otherwise we'll, be utilizing new bluestone. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, Councilman Gale. Any other council members? I can't see everyone, so if you got any questions, please speak up.
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, and we're also joined by Councilor Rosado. I've got a couple of questions for you. And staying on the same trend of thought as Councilman Gale started talking about, we are so used to our streets being dig up, and we wish all the corporations would just like work one at a time. We just had a brand beautiful on Albany Avenue streetscape that was done a couple of years. Not just only been a couple of years. And, it's been dug up a couple of times. So, my concern is just making sure, that, we replace the areas that we are digging up back to what it was before, and not just a temporary patch. And then, a couple of years later, then we have some sinking in the streets. So those are my concerns. Thank you for reaching out to the NRZs and the community. When Michaela talked about, as if you're going to do, this side street, this week, one of the things is putting information out in advance so that the community knows that, okay, next week, this is happening. Because one of the things we, at the end of all this, we council members are the ones that are getting the complaints, like, you never told me you guys were doing this time. So it really would be helpful as far as notification is concerned for the community. One of the other
If you don't mind,
sure.
we've been doing the survey part of it, right? So I don't know if people have been impacted. I know we've been along our route, so I don't, without knowing where people live, we've been doing our survey, which to some will look like construction. We're digging holes to verify utilities, presence and depth, et cetera, right? And we've been working with the DPW. And part of that is, especially when we're going to be doing a detour, like the end of this week and beginning of next week, maybe the middle of the week. We've been working with the DPW, and they also involve Janice Castle, who's been getting that out on social media, et cetera, just as an example of the kind of outreach that goes on. Without stepping on Michaela's toes, she can, explain a little bit more about that outreach and our look ahead and stuff like that. So
And I was actually just going to add too that I was out on Scarborough Street yesterday with Colin. So just going door to door, trying to talk to people if they were home, giving them a notice that, you know, there is going to be a detour, having that 2 different language, and just, you know, being out there in the community and giving that outreach to them.
Oh, that's good to hear. I know you do
Yeah.
touch a little part of Albany Avenue, which is Route 44. I know it's I think if you go back to the map, I think it's the southwest side or the south side, the north side of Albany Avenue, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not quite sure. That is a highly trafficked street that brings traffic in and out of the city. You know, so that is you know, mornings, evenings, you know, people coming to work and leaving the city. I'm not sure what kind of detour that's gonna happen right there over by the new Westbrook Village area, if I'm not mistaken. I think this is far, looking at your map, Chris, I'm not quite sure how far down Route 44 you go. Can you
So
put
we're
that
on Route
in?
44 for a very short period. We
Okay,
kind of go, we come out on Scarborough, we hook a right, which would be kind of heading east. We cross the bridge and then we go into the woods. Because that's a state road with minimal residents like close to it, most
sure.
likely the state would require us to actually do that work at night because of the impact and stuff like that. So that would be something that you would see at night. You know, we didn't talk about it. There are, you know, some places there will be detours. Some places, you know, wherever possible, we'll have, you know, keep a lane of traffic, depending on the road, 1 lane, multiple lanes, you know, so that we're not completely shutting down an area. There might be times where we have to, you know, we would request permission to work at night. There's a couple of our survey over by Hartford Hospital in particular, extremely congested. Obviously, you want to keep your emergency vehicles moving. Shift change over there is crazy. Literally thousands of employees coming and going at 7 and 7, approximately. So that might be an area where we would, you know, request and work with the city and our contractors to work at night. You know, you can't work at night everywhere because obviously you don't want to disturb residents, but it is a balancing act of balancing individuals and the greater community as a whole. So.
Okay, thank you. So just one last question, and then I see Councilwoman Rosado hands is up. So let me just ask one last question. The last time you guys did this was 50 years ago. Now, is this talking about this new XLPE? Will that last another 50 years?
I don't think, you know, might it? Yes. I wasn't here when it was installed last time. God willing, I won't be here next time. You know, they technically, you know, generally have a lifespan of 30 to 40 years is the expected life expectancy. You know, you do a lot of testing along the way to ensure that it's performing as is. I kind of doubt this would be there for 50 years. I think the system will look, you know, very different. Part of what we are doing though is sizing this cable so that we, you know, ideally don't come back to you in 5 years or 10 years and go, yeah, you know, we need to put another cable in. You know, there's always work going on, but this is getting sized to take us into the future. So especially with the electrification, you know, more and more of the communities, cars, buses, trucks, you know, God only knows what will be out there in the future. So.
Just one last question, Councilwoman Rosado. So when you're finished, so we wouldn't have any, say, you know, electricity's down for an hour or two, you know, once you turn off the old one and turn on the new one.
That's correct.
Okay.
Every day we're switching without any awareness of the community, and this would be no different. But that's part of that is why we are putting in the new before we remove the old. You know, just because it's so long term to actually do it, you wouldn't want to leave yourself in a compromised position for that long. So.
Great. And I'm looking forward to seeing your information that Councilman Gale had sent over regarding distribution to other towns. I'm curious about that too. Thank you very much, Chris. Councilman Rosado.
Thank you, Madam President. So one of my questions was what you asked about disseminating the information. So can you refresh my memory? Was it last year you came in front of council? Or was it this year with this information on the easement? Was it last year?
Yeah, Councilwoman, this is Jonathan Ferrigno. I do, we certainly did start outreach.
I think it was September,
last
right?
year.
Last year?
Yeah,
And
that sounds
and
about right.
if I still remember, you guys are a little bit behind on this easement because to my recollection, you guys were supposed to start sending out information in March. Is that correct? Or are you guys on time with this project as projected?
I'll let Chris elaborate on that.
Ultimately, we're largely on target. We were targeting this summer, at least for quite a while. We were targeting starting construction this summer. Obviously, it doesn't always go perfect, but we are quite close to looking to start construction. So,
okay. And I apologize, I came on the meeting late, so pardon me if I ask a question that you guys have already answered. So last time, when first time you came in front of council, we had a lot of concerns about the survey not being in Spanish. So I imagine now it has been in Spanish, done in Spanish. And I just heard Ms. Fritz say that she was, outdoor knocking on Scarborough Street. Do you have staff from MDC that's doing that in the south end of Hartford and other parts of the city?
We are all around. We'll be going door to door. Me, myself, Colin, Mac is also on the call. We will be going out doing door to door. I speak a good amount of Spanish. We have our letters translated in Spanish. And we have a dedicated hotline as well available in Spanish.
Okay. So what type of information has been disseminated already to the public?
To the public, the soil borings that we are working on right now, that has been displayed, and then we are working on a start of construction letter as well. I don't know when we sent off the project information, the overall, just the introductory. Colin, if you want to jump in with the specification of that date, but I know that letter did go out as well earlier.
Yeah, the introduction letters prior to the filing with the Connecticut Siting Council were in the October timeframe, I believe, last year. And those were mailed to everyone along both routes and followed up with door to door.
Okay, so that was last year, October, that the public was notified that this was gonna perhaps start in the summertime.
Yes.
Okay. And so now the only thing that you're doing, because we have to think that was last year, right? People tend to forget. And
absolutely.
Okay.
That.
And so now the approach that you're taking is you're not going to send any more mailers. You're going to go door to door and talk to people.
We are going to send mail as well as door to door.
Okay. And so again, when is it projected that you're going to start? I'm just trying to get to where, basically my question is, the next time that you send out information, what is the projected date? Is it a month in advance, 2 months?
Yeah, it would be a month in advance to the start of construction that will be going door to door, sending out letters. We like to give that time frame to those people so they can make plans and they can be aware of the situation. Right,
because I'm very concerned with the elderlies that live, in different parts of the city that are on dialysis that get picked up by Dial-A-Ride. So, that's very concerning. And like council president said, it's us city council who are going to get all these calls.
Yeah.
And I think, Eversource has, and I appreciate you guys, doing your due diligence, but I think that from last October to where we are at now, everyone should know that this is happening, right? Okay. Those are my questions, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Rosado. If I would just, add to Councilman Rosado, maybe another update, because as she said, I don't know what happened yesterday. I'm going to be very honest with everybody. I just another little update to say, hey, we notified you last week. We're going back out again this week. Just another little update to let people know that you're coming back out again. Is a follow-up from last year. Those are my questions. Seeing no other question from any other council person, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll move to send this back to council with a favorable recommendation, subject to us receiving the information. But I'm happy to move it out of committee at this point and back to council.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry if I may, because maybe you might not see me, but I don't know, did Eversource send us what it is that they're sending out to the residents? Did they provide us a copy with those mailers in Spanish and in English?
1 second, Councilman Rosado. So we will have a motion on the floor. Let us second it, and then you can ask your question through the discussion period. Did you second it? And then I'll open up for discussion. Hello?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, you are correct, and I'm not a voting member, so I can't second it.
Oh, that's right. Well, then I'm going to just second. I will second the motion. Thank you, Councilman Thomas. Thank you for seconding. So the motion has been made to for the resolution back to council with a favorable recommendation pending receiving the distribution of information that Councilman Gill asked for. Motion made and properly second. Now we can open it up for discussion.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam President. So yes, that was my question. Would you be able to provide council with the letters that have gone out to the public? Because it just refreshed my memory what Council President just said. The letters went out last year in October, and October is what, August, September, just 3 months away. So it's it's going to be a year already. So would you be able to provide us with the information on the mailers that have been sent out in Spanish and English, and also the survey, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Michaela and Chris, if you provide that, we'll talk. And if you provide that to me, I'm happy to get it out to the council members.
So let me just also add that we're forwarding this resolution back to the council in a favorable recommendation with the anticipation that you will be providing that information before the full council actually vote on that, and that would be August. Somebody help me with the next council meeting. August, what day? It's not the 8th. When was our next council meeting?
August 12th.
August 12th.
August 12th.
See, that's what summer does to you, your mind. So our next council meeting will be August 12th. So again, the motion has been made and properly second. Any more discussion? Seeing or hearing any more discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. No, those against? Any abstention? So those in favor, the ayes have it. This was or the resolution be sent back to the council full body with a favorable recommendation pending the receipt of the information that was requested by Councilman Gale and Councilwoman Rosado. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Michaela. Thank you, Jonathan, for your presentation. We really appreciate you educating us on that information. Seeing that we have no other item on our agenda, I am going to call this meeting to be adjourned. So again, everybody have a good evening. Goodbye.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night.
Bye.